Hello friends, did you know that world's greatest automobile revolution was made by a farmer's son? That boy in 1879 at an age of 16 left his family when means of transportation was trains and horse carriages and automobiles were only limited to rich persons on the racing tracks. That boy later opened a car company and changed the entire course of automobile industry, and half of all the cars on earth were carrying his name. He was Henry Ford, and he became the one of the wealthiest man in American history. This video is all about his story. Henry Ford was born on 1863 July 30 and was the first of William and Mary Ford's children. From childhood onwards, he has a very good, he showed a great interest in mechanical things, in repairing small devices, and was always opposed his father's wish, because his father wanted Henry Ford to become a farmer and take that farming to the next generation. But he never liked it and he was always against his father. But he did farming from his childhood only for his mother's wish, because he had a very good affection towards his mother. Now, actually, the turning point was in 1871 when he and his friend went to a nearby town and he heard a loud booming sound of a steam engine, and that was the first time where he has seen such a big machine, big engine. And from that day onwards, his love towards machine has become an obsession. And from 1871 to 1879, he was actually 9 to 8 years, from 8 to 12 or 15 years of age, he was only repairing the clocks. Okay, and many nearby villagers, they brought their small stopwatches or clocks to be repaired by Henry Ford, and he was actually good into that. So after repairing so many like watches or small tools or equipments, his interests become like more elevated, and he wanted to do something big. So he left 1879. He left to Detroit. He left his family members and he went to Detroit and joined a small machine shop as an apprentice machinist, and there he actually learned about repairing the things. He learned about the new techniques and tools, and he stayed there for the next 7 to 8 years. He came back to his hometown in 1888, and there he married Clara Jane Bryant. Right after 2 years, he joined as an engineer for Edison Illuminating Company, and this was an interesting point because in 1890s, Edison Illuminating Company was the major stakeholders in providing electricity. So he get to know what is the reasons, what are the we can say electricity generation, what are the different techniques in electric generation. And because there was not that much of work over there, so he was actually getting good amount of time to improve his learning ability. In 1893, he built the first Ford small one-cylinder gasoline engine on a wooden framework, something looking like this. This is the first Ford engine which he has manufactured, because in 1893, auto cycle was already in the market and he was too obsessed with that he wanted his engine to be built. So he used the concept of auto engine, and he has established Ford's first one-cylinder gasoline engine, which is basically installed on a wooden frame. So after seeing this, in 1896, Ford built his first four-wheeler engine known as quadricycle, and this was actually in around 1:30 on 4th of June. And that night he was so excited that around 1:30 near about midnight, he drove that and he was so happy. But the problem with this quadricycle was the heating issue. There was too much heat being generated in that engine and there was no cooling system being given, and he worked on that, and due to overheating he was not able to run that particular vehicle for a longer run. Later on he sold that particular quadricycle for $200, and the money that he got, he had invested in making some more improved version of car, And later on, he started in 1899, he started a Detroit automobile company. But the problem with this was he tried to give four-wheeler the idea that he had got. He improved the cooling system, and he has made the Ford four-wheeler. But the problem with this is actually it was not having the your manufacturing. Different parts were manufactured from different locations, and if any single part is not being manufactured, the entire system was being delayed, right? This was a problem, and due to this, within a span of 2 years, Detroit Automobile Company closed. The reason being, the investors questioned about Henry Ford, and they asked, where is the return? Because because in 2 years of span, they were only able to manufacture 20 cars, and that was the reason for the closure of Detroit Automobile Company. So after this, Henry Ford again started a second company in 1901 named as Henry Ford Company. But again, here the problem was the investor wanted to manufacture, Henry Ford to manufacture the cars which is more sort of for richer person. But the vision for Henry Ford was he want to manufacture the cars for common people at a lower price. But the investors didn't back Henry Ford's idea, and there was some clashes with the ideas. So at the end of like within 1 or 2 years, this Henry Ford Company also get closed. So after back-to-back failures, Henry Ford was not like if you're opening company and after back-to-back closure, we definitely gonna have a negative impact. But Henry Ford actually take that failure as an opportunity, because he stated at that moment, after 2 failures, he stated that failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, and this time more intelligently. That means whatever failure he was actually he came across, right? So he tried to eliminate that failure by looking at the results. Right? In 1909, Henry Ford created its next company after 2 back-to-back failure, and this company was Ford Motor Company. And this was actually the turning point for Henry Ford in 19th century. As investors was not backing up Henry Ford's idea, but at this moment, Henry Ford wanted the investor to trust and the people to trust on him. So what he did, he manufactured a car named as Ford 999, and in that time in 19th century, racing cars were at its peak. So he showcased his Ford 99, and he has this Ford 99 actually participated in one of the top racing competition. And you won't believe it, the Ford 999 with having a very good horsepower, approximately 25 HP, has secured a position number 1. And due to that, he got recognitions, and many investors actually liked the engine of Ford 999. And at that moment, the Henry Ford received lot many funding, lot many investors were interested in their Ford Motor Company. And later on in 1909, Ford manufactured its first very famous, the highest selling model, that is Ford Model T. This was actually the top profitable automobile manufactured by Henry Ford, and you won't believe it. This manufacturing went till 1927, and on 1927 it has marked the manufacturing of 15 million selling, or 15 million product Model T has been manufactured. So 15 million cars were sold within a span of around 18 years from 1909 to 1927, and by that he became one of the wealthiest person in American history, and he has given his automobile has given a new vision was given, and this Ford Model T was actually many normal person or middle class person were able to afford that. In 1913, mostly the moving assembly line was actually given by Ford, because at that time in before 1913 there was a problem that they were not able to manufacture lot many cars. The reason being there was no moving assembly line method of production. So 1913, Ford has started moving assembly line, and due to this revolution, till now we are using this in a more automated way. In 1913, as moving assembly line being started, so it only took 90 minutes to manufacture one Model T. Only 90 minutes. Before that, it was taking near about 1.5 or 2 months. But due to the introduction of this very marvelous revolution by Ford, the single car was manufactured in 90 minutes, and that is the reason by 1927, 15 million cars were sold of Ford Model T, right? So after this, after the introduction of this moving line method production in 1913, at the end of 1913 or starting of 1914, the problem many employees face that due to this repetitive work, the labor or workers were not enjoying, they were not actually liking this job, and they quit. In large scale, many workers actually left the automobile industry due to this monotonous job. So in order to tackle out this, Ford come up with a very interesting plan. What he did in 1914, he reduced the shift hours. Initially it was 12 hours of shift, so he had reduced to 8 hours, and he said we will be having 3 shifts, 8 hours of 3 shift, and it was actually more efficient. And if you see in today's scenario also, we are still following that 8 hours of 3 shift in every manufacturing unit. In 1926, he introduced 5 days a week program, like in which Saturday and Sundays were given off. Only rich persons were able to buy, or you can only see the cars in the racing tracks. But after the manufacturing of Model T, many common persons were able to use, and many common persons were able to purchase the car, the four-wheeler, which was actually before that it was only a dream that a normal person will be seeing. In 1919 and 1945, Henry Ford was actually on the last stages. He was near about to 80 plus of age, right? And in 1919, he given his the president of Ford Motor Company has given to his son Edsel, and he remained one of the sole owners of the business along his wife Clara and Edsel. But however, in 1843, what happens? His son Edsel, due to some medical reasons, in the death of his son Edsel, Henry Ford again took the charge as a president, and later on in 1945, his grandson Henry Ford II has taken the charge from that. After that, if I say the later recognitions, he was offered with the first we can say the gold medal from American Petroleum Institute, and also he has written a numerous number of books. If I say the famous 3, Moving Forward, My Life and Work, and Today and Tomorrow, were the famous books he has written for youngsters like us, right? So one thing we have to understand, in 1947 he was the last day, and he died at around 11:40 at an age of 83. And this was all about our Henry Ford, and he has given his entire life to automobile industry, and the revolution which he has planned since his childhood, he was able to fulfill in 19th century. And at the end, I want to quote a very famous quote by Henry Ford, that there is no disgrace in honest failure, and there is disgrace in fearing to fail. Because if you are not accepting, if you are not facing the fear, then you won't be able to learn from the failure. So always remember, there is no disgrace to failure. If you are fearing from the failure, that is actually disgraceful. So that is it from the life from 1863 to 1947, the complete timeline of Henry Ford, one of the finest engineer, an automobile engineer, and I would rather say he was not having a degree. At that time, only hard work, dedication, perseverance was key to success, and I hope so we have learned that very efficiently from his contribution in the automobile sector. So this is it from my side. This is Suraj Gopi signing off. I hope you like this video, and do comment in the comment section, and do share this video to all of your friends. Thank you guys. Do take care of yourself.